heard the other day. It's like a lot of people are hoping that they can get rid of the criminals, but a lot of them don't seem to realize is that it affects everybody that's here, that's into Latinos. It's just it spans to anybody and everybody that is from overseas, and
Yeah,
they make up.
anybody that's non-white presenting.
Yeah, and they don't seem
Potentially.
to realize as well for years on end now, but it's like talking to a brick wall. They make up a majority of our workforce, labor force.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think unpacking this a little bit, Andy, is that I think a lot of us want to sit here, and I hope we don't. And I appreciate you saying about the voice of reason about because I think it's really really important. We do not want to become them because what's the point then if we do that, right? I was talking to a friend yesterday and about how easy it is to say that you get what you pay for, so to speak. So good luck with that as the economy crashes. We don't want that to happen because we all know in our society now that the people who are at the bottom are just going to get shit on even more when excuse me, when and if the economy crashes. So we should not be hoping for that, right? I
No,
think
of
the
course.
problem is that it may take something like that for them to realize what they've done.
No,
So
yeah, and
it's that fine line, right? It's that fine line of saying, like, listen, if you deport all these people, the tens of millions of people that you claim you want to deport, not only is it inhumane, not only is it unconstitutional, but it will literally cripple our economy. Tariffs will cripple our economy. The hypocrisy again. It was with somebody last week, and I was talking to them about inflation. I said, you understand that tariffs are inflationary, right? Yes, you understand that if he rolls out tariffs, the prices will go up. And you're okay with that. And he's like, yeah. I said, wait a second. For 4 years, you guys have been bitching about prices going up. And now, because Trump's in office and he's telling you that he's going to raise your prices, you're okay with that. That's
yeah, and that
crazy.
was just like it's crazy to me to even hear somebody say that. It's like, okay, so you've played the guitar, the violin, and then conducted this whole orchestra about how everything's too high and this and that. But then all of a sudden, when a guy is saying he is going to have tariffs in place that are going to bring the prices up, you're okay with that. It just boggles my mind. But I said this to a lot of the people that have been really hurt by the results of this whole entire election. It's that, okay, when he does something that's going to affect damn near everybody, and I mean across the board, just liberals, centrists, and everybody else, like, including the people that voted for him, when they start bitching and moaning again, don't expect the other side to break out the tissues because at that point you have lost all matter of sympathy coming your way because this is what you voted for.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Andy. Thanks for jumping in today, brother. Appreciate you very
Yeah,
much.
no
Have a good
problem. Thank you
day.
for having me.
I think again the example, and somebody just mentioned this in the chat. By the way, thank you, chat. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you guys policing things. You guys let the chat eat, as we say. Um, the video that we played or the audio that we played earlier, that YT nationalist, right? That is the underpinning. We've all known that that is the primary reason why MAGA is now in power. Much like, so we go back to the sort of the evolution of Christian nationalism, like in our modern day politics. It goes back to Ronald Reagan, and it was people in that community, the evangelical community, that feel like they were losing their voice and losing their whiteness. So they leaned into Reagan, and then they needed a kind of a talking point, right? They couldn't come out and say, "We want to reshape the government to a more Christian nationalist government." That would have been a tough sell, right? So instead, they focused on abortion, right? So that's been the push from the right to elect officials and ultimately get a Supreme Court and ultimately a president, and then the perfect storm. Everything sort of worked together for them, so they were able to use their Christian nationalist intention, masking it and going after Roe v. Wade. Now, now it's out and loud. Now they tell us every single day. You got people saying that I don't want if women have I don't want women to have the right to vote. People on the right saying we don't want women to have the right to vote. So they literally want a handmaid's tale. So here we are. So they used more rhetoric. They used more, it's the illegals. It's the price of things. It's endless wars. No, no, you vote for us because we'll tell you that those things are the real problem. But what we actually want is the preservation of our whiteness. That's that's the ball game. So when you're in opposition to that, right? You're in opposition with a variety of communities that are non-white or non-white presenting and or non-traditional family. We can't lose that army because then everybody is fractured. And this is my concern with people on the left now, right? Black women have said, fuck y'all, we're done. And I don't blame them. Black women, black men showed up for this election just like they did in 2020. It's everybody else, right? So as you're evolving through this process, and I'm hoping everybody have said, fuck y'all, it's like they didn't, it's your privilege, right? Again, people are going to, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever best for your family. But if you leave, then you're giving up and you're leaving it to somebody else to pick up the pieces. Again, your own choice. I'm not leaving. I'm not. I'm not in a position right now to leave anyway, but I'm not leaving. I've got a daughter to raise. I've got 2 boys to try to influence, and I'm not leaving. And I hope you don't. I hope you don't either. But that's, again, it's your call, and I respect whatever decision you make for your own body. All right. Hey, Graf, how are you?
Oh man, facts. I'm all right. How are you, man?
I'm okay, brother. What's on your mind today?
Well, I know that there's a lot of darkness leaking and leaning over all of us right now, but I do think there are some things we should think about. In regards to them getting what they asked for, it being a win, lose-lose situation. Okay.
Yep.
One of the reasons why I think it's a lose situation is because we've just spent the past 4 years passing bipartisan legislation under this Biden administration. There are Republicans that have reaped heavy rewards from the infrastructure bill, from the CHIPS Act, right?
Correct.
From all of these different pieces of legislation that they have passed that their constituents want. And I don't see the same amount of support for the Donald Trump agenda within those specific groups of Republicans that worked with Democrats as you would have seen in the 2016, 2020, you know, Trump term.
Good point.
And it's gonna be a very interesting thing to watch because I really do feel as though it's like, you've got Republicans, sure, that were voted into office in the state of PA, for example, but they're coming out of very purple, if not light blue counties, right? And they have constituents to please, and they have constituents that they need to continue to support. And the idea that you're just going to go full tilt into the MAGA 2025 agenda when you were voted in because of your prior 4 years working bipartisanly with the other side, it doesn't seem to me that that's going to be a trend, right? And I think we do need to focus on that. I think another thing to focus on as well is like the Mitch McConnells of the world. They understand the importance of the filibuster. They understand that if you were to remove the filibuster, what could wind up happening if a Democratic majority is elected in 2026. And you're watching right now the Tucker Carlsons of the world attack guys like Mitch McConnell. And if I told you 10 years ago that Mitch McConnell would be the thing standing in the way between our democracy and autocracy, you tell me I'm probably crazy. But the thing is he is,
Well, he had a choice in 2020. He could have easily encouraged his caucus in the Republican Senate to remove Trump from office.
Agreed.
And he didn't do that. So he gets no credit in my book at all.
Agreed. I do. I'm not giving him credit, facts, and I hope you understand where I'm just coming from the big picture.
I get you. I mean, I think, keep your friends closer, your enemies closer, so to speak.
Yeah, and the other thing that I want to talk about too, and this is in regards to the Gen Z males that thought it was a good idea to go ahead and vote for Donald Trump because you're struggling to find jobs or you're struggling to find a full-time gig. You guys seem to idolize the military quite a lot, and yet we have a recruitment problem in this country, and it doesn't seem as though you want to join the military. So why is that? Because when I got out of high school, I had an option. I either go to college or I go get a full-time job working for the Navy. And let me tell you something, it was the greatest decision I've ever made. And going to work for the Navy gave me benefits. It gave me a freedom of life. It gave me money. It gave me. And these guys are all sitting here complaining about not being able to get full-time gigs. And I'm just trying to figure out for the life of me how you can be in the manosphere and not in any way, shape, or form consider the idea of joining the military and supporting your country. So
That's a good point, Raph.
I'm not going to listen to Gen Z complain about not having jobs any longer. If you want a job, go serve your fucking country and stop bitching about it.
Unemployment's at 4%. There's jobs out there.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yep.
It's all a fabrication, you know.
Yep.
But
it's a justification. It's a justification of their disregard for women at the end of the day, in my opinion.
Right. And you know, my last point, Facts. I'm not going to be having discussions about immigration with people that don't have any experience with immigrants in their lives. Just like I'm not going to have discussions about transgender rights if you're not an endocrinologist or a fucking geneticist, right? Like the idea that an electrician can somehow have an opinion that's educated on something so complex is mind-boggling to me. Because if you come into my house as an electrician of 30 years and you tell me the wiring in my house is wrong, I'm not going to ask questions. I'm going to trust you based off of your expertise. I think it's very important that many of us stop questions that we need to reframe from here on out. And it's just we need to talk about the what ifs, because these are the things that that side of the house seems to talk about quite a lot as well. You know, so I'm done trying to have these conversations with people. I understand science. I understand gender fluidity. I understand the fluidity of sex. I understand all of these things. The unfortunate reality is the people who didn't go to college to get those educations don't, and they're trying to put their foots in the doors of conversations that they shouldn't be included in any longer. And we need to delegitimize them immediately, and we need to delegitimize ourselves. We need to say, I'm not a professional. I'm not comfortable having this conversation any longer with you. It comes down to privacy for me. I simply do not want the government involved in my medical decisions and the medical decisions of other Americans. And I no longer want my private data up for grabs from private entities. We need to focus on that kind of conversation rather than the demographics that are being affected now, because eventually we will all be fucking affected. So it's
well said, brother.
It's like yeah, and I'm sorry to go on a rant, man. I just have been thinking about the way to reframe these conversations as much as possible.
I get it.
Because I think a lot of them are a waste of time.
It's a different conversation. I completely agree. For me, it's about understanding what happened and then doing everything we can to try to fix it so it doesn't happen again. But thank you, brother. I appreciate you very much.
Yeah, take it easy, fam.
You too. See you later. All right. So just want to thank you to Kathy, to Christina, to Ben, to Stephanie. Thank you guys for your Cash App donations. Appreciate you all very, very much. You're amazing individuals. All right. Let's bring up CJ.
I want to join. No.
Hi, CJ. My bad. Okay. I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of things real quick, if I could. The Women's March is scheduled for January the 18th, 2025 in DC and across the country. Again, that's January 18th. The link to the Women's March website is the first link you'll find in my link tree. Our Bodies, Our Future is the title of it this time. We are not done with Trump set to return to the White House early next year. We're facing a moment that calls us to act boldly. It's time to march. There's programs and initiatives, all kinds of information on that website. It's again, womensmarch.com. You'll find the link in the link tree in my bio. It was a powerful statement last time, and I think it's more things like this. And I really expect and need men to show up for that as well. Because the 4B movement is about to be in place in America. And for those of you who don't know what 4B movement is, you might want to look into it. And if you don't look into it, you may want to consider investing in some hand lotion and lots of it. I'm just saying, you can draw your own conclusions as to what I just said. But that would be my recommendation. Just saying. Everyone, please keep tapping and sharing. Let's see if we can get to 300K. I have a profile picture now. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Fax?
Doing fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
I just have two things. First of all, we're kind of doing a post-mortem. We need to stop thinking the way we think, and we need to start thinking the way they think. We are influenced by facts, and we're influenced by information. They are not. So we already know this. Second of all, we were wondering why the establishment Republicans were supporting this all along. Was it that they were focusing on the big picture? Because there was no money for down ballots. All of the RNC money was going to Trump. If I was in the down ballots, I would not be happy with that. So I'm just wondering, that they knew what the implementation of Project 2025 or the culmination of what the ultimate plan was going to be. I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Well, a couple things. Okay, first of all, and I want to address this, and I'm not sure if I've done a good enough job addressing this, so I want to make sure I'm clear about this. It's easy to say it's the message from the left. My argument, and you kind of touched on it, friend. My argument is when the message from the right are 3-word catchphrases, lock her up, stop the steal, fuck Joe Biden, those are effective. But when your entire campaign is rooted in hate, lies, sexism, misogyny, racism, you can't combat that with a message, a singular message. You just need to have more people being the messenger. So the right dominates the airwaves, the non-traditional airwaves. In fact, most media in our country is right-leaning anyway. People want to criticize NBC. For the most part, our country, first of all, is center-right. And most of our news tends to be moderate, right down the middle, right? Sure, there could be biased journalists, but in general, that's when the consumption of our mainstream media is primarily right, primarily conservative. There's just not enough voices in spaces like this to combat what has been being said. The media did a disservice to our country because of the way in which they covered Donald Trump. They covered his nonsense, but they didn't talk enough to say what he's talking about is in direct, some journalists did, what he's talking about is in a direct comparison to Yahtzee Germany, that he quotes elements of Mein Kampf, that he's talking about poisoning the bloodstream, that he's talking about mass deportation. That in and of itself is just despicable. Think of it this way. If up until the Trump era, if a presidential candidate stood on stage during a debate and said that I have concepts of a health plan, that would have been game over. Howard Dean, who was the front runner, former governor of Vermont, was the front runner in the Democratic primary, and because he had that emotional scream in his speech, he got mocked off the stage. They did not cover Trump properly. That was a disservice. So therefore, long story short, I'll land the plane right here. It's not about the message. It's about how many messengers we have or currently don't have.
Well, I mean, something that they did was they would just blurt out things. And then we would go on the defensive and start talking about, well, actually, the fact is, this is not true. That even the most nonsensical things, because they knew that was distracting. I think that it would have probably been better for the media to kind of, Trump knew how to own the news cycle.
Yeah.
It would have been better if they kind of did the first 5 minutes of every broadcast with, this is what happened in Donald Trump world today, and have a whole bunch of clips with like background music of Benny Hill. And then we talk about all of the stuff that's happening in like Congress, things that were happening, the actual news, as opposed to focusing on, well, what did he mean by that? What happened? What, like, you know, we were always on the defensive.
Yes and no. I mean, I think there was a little bit of offense, and I want to bring somebody else up, friend. I appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I hear what you're saying, and sure, I mean, I did notice a shift when the Harris campaign got rolling, because they were on the offensive. They were going at his rhetoric. They were producing ads like within hours of one of the, awful things that he would have said. Again, I'm going to be part of a couple of things going forward. He'll have a couple of announcements later about a few things, but it's just, there's not enough of us. Sure, it's Parker, it's Dean, it's Harry, it's other influencers, it's Olive, it's people influencing the next generation, but there needs to be more of us, quite frankly. Abundance, how are you, friend?
Facts, thank you for having me. I don't usually request up like I did, but I don't know if you saw the news article about him trying to put together a commission to vet currently serving high-ranking members of our military.
Oh, yeah, that's in the Republican agenda, wanting to get rid of woke left-wing Democrats.
Right, and by woke left-wing Democrats, what they really mean is people who aren't willing to pledge their loyalty to Trump.
Correct.
That might be the last guardrail that we have in this country against what they are trying to do, and specifically what he is trying to do. And what I mean to say by that is simply that when he gets in office, and they've always referenced his first 100 days, this is going to happen like a blitzkrieg. The things that they're going to do very quickly. And I'm afraid that we're going to be sitting around looking at each other and asking, did he just do that? Did he just do that? Did they just do that? Did they? And we're going to find ourselves in a really, really bad place really, really fast. So my question to all of those who are listening right now is, should that happen, what are you prepared to do? What sacrifices are you prepared to make? Are you willing to take more than a day or a weekend off from your job to be out in the streets and protest and risk your freedom, your safety, your job? Like, what are you really prepared to do to save democracy? And I think that's a soul-searching question that we all have to ask ourselves. And I think we need to start asking ourselves that question, because we're only about, a month and a half away?
Yeah, I think it's about 2 months. Yeah, but I think that's a really good point. And I think part of one of the things that I'm planning on doing in this space is sort of touching on exactly what you talked about. Like, we'll talk about it at the micro level. Like, people may be interested in running for office. They never thought they could. They had no idea what it's like. So as somebody who's served in state government, we can start there. How do you get on a ballot? How much money should you expect to raise? What's considered a viable campaign donation? How do you then elevate your status within your state to your county or to your district? Are there open seats in your school board? These are all these kinds of things that we're going to be doing at that particular level. That's one example. What you're talking about, I think, is bigger. But we have to start somewhere. And I think I've always said this, I've said this publicly, is like you're either inspired to change or you're desperate to change. Generally speaking, you don't want to make a decision to change unless you're inspired to do so. It gets people to want to change. When I say change, I mean to be involved more, Because again, we look at the last election, Democrats did not show up. It's plain. That's it. We got to stop arguing about it. But they did. We know what Trump voters voted for. It's about the same that voted for him in 2020. We know what they voted for. Democrats didn't show up. Why did they not show up? We have a variety of reasons. Ultimately, I think it's apathy. I think it's the quest for perfection allows you to miss the good, which is what happened. But we got to flip this whole fucking thing on its head. The whole thing.
Yeah, we do, and we have to we have to act together. We have to not lose hope, and we just have to be prepared, right? Because worrying about something doesn't benefit anybody. Preparation for the worst case scenario and hoping for the best is the best course of action. And I just wanted to share that because it's going to be a really bumpy ride, and that ride is going to be like a roller coaster. It's going to happen really, really fast. So thank you for having me up. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate what you do.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you very much, too. See you later. Somebody asked about this, and I had this on my list. So this was the statement released from Trump regarding the new agency position, Department of Government Efficiency and/or DOGE, an acronym that is a wink to the dog-themed cryptocurrency by the same name that started as a joke and then skyrocketed after Musk promoted it. While it's not yet clear whether this entity will exist within the federal government or outside, an official government agency cannot be created without an act of Congress. So Elon will operate outside of the government by design because they don't have to go through congressional approval by design. So they're not subjected to government oversight. By design. So this is the statement. Together, these two wonderful Americans will pave the way for my administration to dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies, essential to the Save America movement. Also, I look forward to Elon and Vivek making changes to the federal bureaucracy with an eye on efficiency and at the same time making life better for all Americans. We know that Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and other benefits that support the working poor in our country, SNAP benefits, things like that, have always been a target of the Republican administrations in the past. Always. You can go back 50 years and you can see the same thing. This right here is the agency that will gut it. Crazy, right? It's fucked up. Everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. We appreciate you all very much. Autrey, how are you this morning?
Doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
When someone wants to get married for education, all the people with kids with disability going to suffer on a lot.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
I had a disability, and I remember how hard it is. And imagine how even harder when that for education going to be gone.
I know, friend. I mean, again, I don't touch on this enough. It's members of the disabled community whose government subsidies and benefits they depend on. Those things will be gutted in an effort to justify another corporate tax cut, because that's what's coming. That's what's coming. It is terrifying.
Yeah, I'm scared. So
hang in there,
thanks for having me up here, by the way.
You got it, brother. Thanks for coming in today. I appreciate you very much. You have a good day.
You too.
It's a weird position to be in, because people who are going to be harmed the most are some of his most loyal fans, voters, supporters. The Miss J, how are you today?
Hey, Facts. I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm okay. What's on your mind?
The DOGE. I really appreciate you breaking that down for me. It has had me up freaking out.
Right. It's rightly so. It's the problem. It's one thing to have a governmental agency, because governmental agencies are subjected to oversight, and we couldn't expect much oversight from the Republicans anyway. But if this exists outside the government with influence over policy, then the train is off the fucking track on day one.
And it's everything we warn them about, of course, but nobody listens.
You're right. Nope.
I just really wanted to thank you for breaking that down. I didn't know if you'd see my comment or not, so I wanted to get up here.
I had it on my list anyway.
I'm
glad you reminded me though, but thank you for that. I appreciate that. See,
thank you so much.
I can't read everybody's, but I do read the chat.
No, I appreciate it. I love listening to you. You break it down in great ways that people should understand, but of course, people don't. But I do appreciate you doing all of this because it keeps me up to speed as well.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate you. Have a good day.
You
Be
take
safe out
care.
there. All right. Bye. Yeah. Okay. A couple other things. Actually, we got some more guests. We have quite a few guests. I'll bring up Olive. See what's on Olive's mind today. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. How you holding up? I saw a video of you walking on the beach. Are you doing all right?
Yeah, I hold on, give me one quick second.
Sure. And I have something else I want to kind of touch on here too briefly, guys. So interesting. I'm not sure if you saw this, but there was a AOC did this interesting sort of sociology experiment with her voters, because there was this phenomenon in New York as she won re-election that a lot of voters voted for her and for Trump. So she opened up her Instagram story and then asked voters, and these are some of the responses. So AOC asked her followers who split their ballots, called split ticketing, either for Trump or her or Trump and down ballot Dems, to try to explain why, and then she posted the reply. So it's a simple question: why did you vote for me and Trump? Some of the answers: it's real simple. Trump and you care for the working class. It's real simple, but I wanted change, so I went with Trump and blew for the rest of the ballot just to put some brakes on. Voted Trump, but I like you and Bernie. I don't trust either party establishment and or politicians. Trump is going to get us the money and let men have a voice. You're brilliant and have amazing passion. That's an interesting one. Trump is going to get us the money and let men have a voice, but yet that person still voted for a woman. Interesting. I feel like Trump and you are both real. Wow. Voted for Trump in Arizona, but voted for Dem Rubin instead of Carrie Lake because thought she was not good. Okay. I know people that did this, and it was because of Gaza. I support you and did this, felt like I didn't have a choice after Biden's administration's disaster. The response you got makes me want to barf, what somebody else said. Dems do a better job at the local level, but are terrible at the macro level. So those are some interesting examples as to what people said. Go ahead, Olive.
So one of the things, so the video yesterday of me at the beach, I find peace at water. I've been a mermaid. My mom has always called me her little mermaid. And after everything that's been going on in the last week, whether it's personal or even political, we're in the I don't know phase. The one thing I do know is that water out there always comes in and out. So I was at the beach and I sat there. I'm like, you know what people might want to see? They might want to see a little Olive walking on the beach and letting them know that it's going to be okay. And you know what? It is going to be okay. We're in the I don't know phase yet. A lot of us have plans. And seeing his cabinet come together is terrifying the crap out of me right now.
Yeah.
But, I told you guys from the start, I'm not going down without swinging. And I stand by that. I stand firm on it.
Everybody, please tap. Please gift Olive. Please consider contributing to the gifting goal. Please consider subscribing, and please join our team if you haven't yet. Thank you.
So I'm in the I don't know phase, but the I don't know phase isn't gonna last forever. And it's just that's what it is right now. We're all in this I don't know phase. And the biggest thing we can do is stick together the best way we can and keep moving forward. So when we're talking about his cabinet and the AOC thing, I talked about in a separate group I'm in another group where we're talking politics. A lot of people stood
Hang on
around.
1 second, Olive. This is the comment of the day from Hill. It's not a cabinet, it's a junk drawer.
Yes, 110%. I mean, the fact he made a whole new a whole new position for Musk and Vivek, like what?
Outside of the government, which is the scary part.
And then having Pete, what's his face from Fox News, Secretary of Defense, like,
correct.
Are you kidding me?
Kristi Noem as DHS Secretary.
I'm waiting for the day when I see that what's his name? Ben Carson is HUD secretary, because that's what he was last time too.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's any lessons learned from from their perspective, the lessons that they've claimed that they learned is that they loaded their administration with bureaucrats that they've labeled, but people that they chose, and now they're saying it's just a loyalty test. So it kind of reminds me of that scene in Animal House, if anybody's ever seen it. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another? And that's kind of what it's like because people have sold their soul. Think about Marco Rubio. I mean, Ted
Yeah,
Cruz's name is now being mentioned as a potential Supreme Court judge. So,
it's just
and yeah, I am showing my age. I know facts. You're right. Um, Marco Rubio, who was just constantly dissed by Trump and just mocked for his height. Little Marco is now going to be carrying the Trump administration's message around the world as Secretary of State. That's
ter-
crazy. Again, everything here, cabinet positions are subjected to Senate approval, but again, with a 53 to 50, 53, I think, seat
and they
majority
have
that
the
they
House
have
and they
now.
have the Senate. They have the House and they have the Senate. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's not official yet in the House, but it's pretty damn close.
It's just
Again, they're going to
oy.
operate with a very slim minority, even if they win it, right? Which they showed in this most current Congress that they were completely incapable of governing. So there's those moderate Republicans that are going to be, are probably disgusted by this as well, and they're going to have to figure out a way to navigate through this because the Freedom Caucus is just going to get louder and louder and louder, and that's the worst part of
110%.
the whole thing. So. All right, let's bring up some guests here. Friends, looking to talk to some ops. If you have, I'm just curious because from my perspective, it is a lose-lose situation. And I'll tell you why, but it requires a conversation. Guys, we're slacking.
Gotta
2 hours
tap.
in. Let's go. Tap like crazy. Tap
Tap,
it.
tap, tap.
Tap it like you mean it. This might be the only tapping you get if the 4B movement goes into effect. So I might encourage that.
I'm good for the 4B movement. I'm good.
Yeah, you're good.
But,
You're totally good. You're good. Nurse, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm not opposition. I just am
That's okay.
frustrated. I just want to talk for a few minutes.
You got it.
So, two things that is heavily in my mind since I am a nurse. I saw something when I was doom scrolling last night that possibly we might be missing a bullet with RFK Jr. over HHS, and it looks like they might be leaning towards Ben Carson. Have you heard any more on that?
I've not. I don't know if it was necessarily that RFK would be specifically the cabinet secretary over HSS. I think his role would be more specific to FDA and things along those lines. I have heard rumblings about Ben Carson's name again. Al was just touching on it, so we'll see. I mean, I think a lot. I mean, again, who the fuck knows? I mean,
Okay.
I
at
don't
this
know.
point,
You're right. We are in the country has effed around and we are in the find out phase right now. It's
Yeah.
just
Pretty much.
I
Yeah.
feel like I need to ask my doctor to increase my my anxiety medication.
And
you might want to consider growing a certain type of leafy green vegetable in your backyard, and and then call it a day.
Well,
like,
see, I'm a nurse. I can't do that.
well,
You
the other
can't?
thing too, you can't grow the spicy basil.
Depending on where you live, I guess.
I can't partake because if I were to get drug tested,
Oh.
it would be a problem.
That's
And I need
unfortunate.
my job.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't either. I can't do the spicy basil at all, but I think I could grow it here. But
Well, it's funny because you say that because every nurse that I know, I'll just leave that right there.
Got it. Okay.
I'm just saying, everybody, to each his own.
I
I'm not up here
wish.
advocating either way. I'm just saying for each his own.
I wish. Okay. The other thing I'm highly, highly concerned about is Department of Education. I have a special needs son. He has sensory processing disorder, epilepsy, ADHD, and he has an IEP. And I have a cousin. I'm in Northern Virginia. I have a cousin in Georgia. I grew up there. She's a teacher. And I have been posting these public service announcements on my FB page. And I just was tapping about my frustrations with the possible changes to the Department of Education. And I posted his video that he, his 10-point plan for education and that how the Department of Education was going away in Washington. And she, like I said, she's a teacher. She's a master's degree educated teacher. And she responded back that he clearly states it's just going away at the DC level and these where something about how the idiots there don't even need to be in charge anymore. And I'm just like, I have lived as a special needs IEP mom for over 6 years, and I know what protections that department gives.
You guys keep talking. I'll be right back.
yes,
And
ma'am.
I'm just so frustrated at the willful ignorance of people. I just don't understand how so many people have been spoon fed that our Department of Education is so bad.
And it's at, FemGrit. So I'm a special needs educator. I've written multiple IEPs. Actually, I was supposed to be writing a letter to Congress because they're cutting funding to our program. And at this moment, I got a letter from one of my head supervisors, and basically the nicest way she said is, hey, you guys might want to look in for something else, because getting rid of the DOE in general, they're not going to care about IEPs. Trump 2024, that's not the case. IEP is not necessarily a state issue as well. I mean, that's also through the DOE and stuff like that. I mean, I'm also in Virginia. I'm planning to get out of Virginia here shortly, hopefully. But the other part too is we need to get rid of Youngkin. And he's talked about putting Youngkin in his drunk drawer, as we're going to call it now. So,
well, let him.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, take Youngkin. Youngkin is that's a whole nother thing too, is when we're talking about the Department of Education, it's not just the IEPs and the special needs department. It's also just in general with the DOE. We have to take it all the way back to the first person when Trump put her in. I forget her name, Betsy DeVos.
Yes.
The voucher lady. Thanks for jumping in today, friend. I appreciate you very much for being here. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I heard the tail end of that. I mean, I have talked about this publicly on this app about overfunding education, and they want to eliminate access to public education. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it's just, oi.
I know, oi. Everyone, again, tapping friends. Please consider subscribing. We have a couple of events we're working on planning, and you need to be a subscriber to participate, because we do have a subscribers only section in our Discord. We'd appreciate you joining us. Kel, how are you today?
I'm doing it's Kelly, but I'm doing okay, I guess. I really just wanted to hop on for a really quick second and see if anyone's read, or if you've read On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. It's a really short read. It talks
with elements for Project 2025. It's loaded with elements for Agenda 47. And the conversation we were talking about was about the military in particular. So Chapter 10, Return to Peace Through Strength. And again, if you think about all the things, the rhetoric that Trump has shared out on the campaign trail, and now that he's in office, he's sort of doubled down on all these kinds of things. And remember, Pete Hegseth is now the Department of Defense Secretary, who's a Fox News talking head, is a vet. At least there's that. So Chapter 10 of this agenda, this is the RNC platform, and again, infiltrated Project 2025, Agenda 47. Return to peace through strength. Our commitment, keeping the American people safe, requires a strong America. The Biden administration, weak foreign policy has made us less safe and a laughingstock all over the world. The Republican plan is to return peace through strength, rebuilding our military and alliances, countering China, defeating terrorism, building an Iron Dome missile defense shield, promoting American values, securing our homeland and borders, and reviving our defense industrial base. We will build a military bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Our full commitment is to protecting America and ensuring a safe and prosperous future for all. Just a note on that before I move on. Securing our homeland and borders, with Christy Noem in charge of that. So this particular point, modernizing the military. Republicans will ensure our military is the most modern, lethal, and powerful force in the world, of which it already is. We will invest in cutting edge research, which we already do, and advanced technologies, which we already do, including an Iron Dome defense shield, support our troops with higher pay, and get woke left wing Democrats fired as soon as possible. So if you are in the military and you vote Democrat, or if you defend women's rights to their body or human rights or representation by marginalized communities, you took an oath to the Constitution to preserve, protect, and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic, person that puts their hand up and swears an oath to the country, because you are a left-wing woke Democrat and you're in the military, you can expect to be fired. That would mean that everyone else would be part of the brigade that would go around the country looking for others who are considered the enemy from within. So then I would ask this question to you, MAGA, right? How would the military know? How would they know? How would they know? Are you going to have to just have signs on your door, scarlet letters, lamb's blood around your doorway? How would they know? How would they know immigrants? How would they know if they're undocumented? How would they know if they're illegals, as they say? How would they know? How would they know that? The rights that you claim to care about so much, the preservation of democracy, due process. How would that work? MAGA voted for a lose-lose scenario. That's a perfect example right there.
And like that whole part of Agenda 47. I mean, you're remaining apolitical when you're in uniform. Outside of uniform, you can do whatever you want and that kind of thing. I mean, it's how are you going to figure it out? Because basing it off of what I know and studies that have shown, there's a lot of people who are left leaning in the military.
Correct.
So.
Hi, Jackie. Jackie?
Yeah. How do I do this?
You just talk.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, got you.
Oh, okay, great. I can put my camera on too. So I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was up next. So I have a bunch of things that I'm trying to decide about this. Obviously I feel like I'm still in a tailspin about it. I clearly lived in my own blue bubble for so long. I live in Massachusetts. I have a special needs brother who my parents worked their entire adult lives to secure the first in the state, special ed classrooms, funding. My mother acted as an activist throughout the 70s and 80s to get all of these programs, follow the federal funding up through Massachusetts and get these things in place. And they're Trumpers. My parents now have gone down the pro-life rabbit hole way back when that was and sinker. So they don't even realize that they're supporting a party that's basically, their point is to undo all of the good things that my parents spent their life doing. So
yeah,
that's frustrating.
Did you have a question, Jackie, or did you have?
I'm wondering, do you do you know the details of what the Social Security, like the destruction of what they want to do to Social Security?
Sure.
And Medicare, Medicaid, they say, I am from my end, I just hear that they're going to destroy it. But then I see that I read somewhere that it's more about that they're not going to tax it. So I'm worried that the people